another Sabbath conversation. My name is Eliana, and today's video we're going to be speaking about stop letting unaccountable women shame you out of a righteous household. That's a mouthful, but we're going to just jump right into it, right? Everybody say that they want a king, right? But what are we doing to cultivate the discipline required to hold down a kingdom? Are we just looking for a man to stroke or finance our own illusion? So it brings the question, it brings it back to what is our value? So when I was looking and I was searching and finding like, okay, what does it mean? What is the world saying that a high value woman is? And what I found was that the culture often presents her as expensive, difficult to access, highly maintained, and entitled to a wealthy man. And I was like, that is very interesting. And it's not like I haven't seen this, in the world either. But, this sort of attitude, like, I didn't necessarily cultivate my character, which I spoke about in the last few videos. I didn't necessarily cultivate my character, but I deserve to have a righteous man, or I made a lot of poor decisions in life, but I definitely deserve to have a righteous man. And you can find the content, the conversations out there. It's all over with women having this illusion of what they think they deserve, in a man based on them not even aligning in their own lives with that type of man. So I'm going to get into it and just allow the words to kind of like absorb. Don't, before you get offended or anything like that, just listen. Just listen, because I'm not the only sister who has tried to point the lenses at us and try to help women see and own up to the mistakes and things that they've made in life and try to take accountability for that. So I'm not the only one. So just listen and follow along. And if it's resonating with you, let it resonate. So as far as what a high value is from a Hebraic perspective, a high value woman, she's a woman who is disciplined. She's emotionally stable. She's resourceful. She's peaceful. She's accountable, and she has the ability to function within a righteous order. Okay, that's the key. That's key. If you do not see a woman able to function inside of a righteous environment where there's order, that kind of tells you right there who you're dealing with, okay? But that's where our true value comes from. And notice I didn't mention any material possessions or the aesthetic, the way that woman look. Our value doesn't have anything to do with that, okay? The world has taught us that we have to just look pretty. And that's our value. If you look pretty, not everyone looks pretty. Not everyone, how some people, they like to rate themselves on a 1 to 10. Not all of us are 10s. Let's be honest about this. So we should not place our value in how we look, and looks fade. For us women, we know our looks eventually gonna fade anyway. So we really have to place our value in where it really should be placed. And that's that internal character. So which I always speak about. So that is what a high value woman is. She's disciplined, emotionally stable, resourceful, peaceful, accountable, and she's able to function inside of a righteous order. And you can look at that. She's able to function inside of a righteous environment. So false value, right? The wardrobe, the aesthetic, having expensive taste, having a strong attitude, does not prove that you are a woman who can build with anybody. So that's a false value when women think that having this strong attitude, assertive attitude, and is really being argumentative and uncooperative. Really, that's really what it is. But that's not valuable to a man inside of a kingdom, inside of a homestead. That sort of attitude is not valuable, because it's like, If you're going to have that type of attitude when working as a team with someone, why conjoin? Why decide to get with that person if that's how you're going to behave? There has to be some type of like compromise and collaboration, you know, when you're working with someone. So it's not just, why would you come in with a strong attitude? And for those who have probably worked with someone, you probably worked with someone who had a strong attitude, very aggressive, very controlling, trying to control the room, doesn't really want to cooperate with other people. You know, it's the worst to deal with. So if you wouldn't want to deal with someone like that on a team, a man definitely doesn't want to deal with someone like that inside of a relationship, especially when he can find another woman who doesn't behave that way. So our value really does lie when it comes to relationships. Our value really does lie in how we behave and how we conduct ourselves. Okay, no matter what, you can always be redeemed in a sense when you are striving to improve character. So like, you can make horrible mistakes in life, but if you are sincere and you're like, oh man, I messed up, and I really am trying to just from here on out try to make the best decisions that I can and repair the best way that I can, and you're cultivating these values, you are upping your value. You're upping your value in doing that. You know, so don't even be shamed in that, because a lot of times we made poor decisions based off growing up inside of a culture that didn't necessarily have our best interests in mind. So we made mistakes. And so, yeah, the only thing you really can do is just start to align your character back to what is right, you know, back in alignment with. So we're going to move on to the next point. But before I do, I just want to say that a crown is not an accessory. So, you know, you have some sisters say that I'm queen such and such, I'm queen this. It's not an accessory. You have to prove that in your conduct. If you look at the real queens and go back in history, you don't see them saying like, I'm this queen. Like, you look at what they've done and you're citing their works. You're citing their works. This woman did this. And a queen always has a king. A queen always has a king. So if you have someone that's, you know, purporting themselves to be this queen, and they put that crown on and they're like, I'm a queen, you're like, okay, do you got a king? You don't see a king, we already know, like, come on, you wrapped up in your own illusion and you created this fantasy so that you can feel good about yourself, you know. That's all that is. Your value is not measured by how expensive you are to maintain. It is measured by what becomes stronger because you are present, right? Allow your presence to make a difference in a household. Allow your presence to make a difference. Bring that value, sisters. Bring that value. All right. You cannot demand a king when your spirit is too chaotic to live under the responsibility of a kingdom. You cannot demand a king. A king don't have time for that chaos. You know, he has too much to do, and he doesn't have time. And even when it comes to polygynous situations, most times a king is functioning in that sort of dynamic. And now he really don't have the time. You know, he really don't have the time. And you may be around other sisters, for those sisters who are interested in nation building, and you like, okay, most likely I'm going to be inside of a polygynous household. You're going to have other women with eyes on you. So when you have other sisters who are looking at you, we know how we are. We know how we are. We're going to see certain things like, sis, I see what you're doing. And the man may not be there, right? He may not be there to see it, but that woman, as the Izir Conegdo, as that protector of the home, if she sees something, she may take that to the king and be like, while you were away, this one was doing this. And you'll have sisters who, if they are not able to function inside of a righteous order, like I mentioned earlier, they'll get upset with you. They'll get upset, like, oh, you're going to tell him. And so that's another talk. I can go into that one too, like for those sisters who want to learn more about that. But this video is not about polygyny. So, but it's so dynamic, you know. So getting back to the topic, if you cannot demand a king when your spirit is too chaotic to live under the responsibilities of a kingdom. All right, you got to bring that peace. You got to bring that peace and show your value. Like when I'm present, I bring peace. I help people come together. I bring harmony. I bring unity. I bring laughter. I bring happiness when I'm around. I bring fun. If somebody is sad, I'm lifting them up in that space, which makes everybody happy. Show that value, sisters. Bring that value. All right. So I want you to put a 1 in the chat. And for those who are coming later, put a 1 in the comment if you were taught that being high value meant being expensive and hard to access. And put a 2 if you now believe value is proven by discipline, peace, and contribution. All right, moving on to the second point. Stop allowing undisciplined women to shame disciplined women. We're about to get into it. This one might be a little, this one might ruffle some feathers. Many times you have women who mock or shame women, or they may call them a pick-me, right? I spoke about that. They may call them, oh, she's a pick-me, because she's trying to align with what men desire. She aligns with traditional values. And she may be shamed or mocked. I've heard it, and it's just like, what it really is that, and I'll get into what it really is. But before I do, I just wanted to give like an example of what this looks like. For those who have learned about Sister Shahrazad, she, if you go and just type her name into YouTube, look at the interviews that she done, and you'll see like the women in the audience like just coming at her. They are so upset because she is like blowing the top off of what women be doing behind closed doors in relationships. And she's blowing the top off like, this is what I know what you're doing. You're being manipulative. You're doing this, you're doing that. All those behaviors that women be doing. And not to make this a polygynous conversation, but in polygyny, this is where you start to see that sort of thing. Like, this one is over here being manipulative. This one's lying. She just told me this and told this. So you really start getting, getting to people's character, you know. And you have character issues in monogamous relationships too. That's oftentimes why it doesn't work, because people don't want to change. You know, they come into a relationship, oh, I don't want you to change me. Oh, so that means you don't want to grow. So that means you just want to be, we just want to be stagnant people. You know, we don't want to evolve, we don't want to grow. Plants, life grows, but when we say we don't want to do that, we just want to stay in a dead, dying state, but all right. So so I just mentioned Shahrazad as an example, as a woman who was standing firm within a righteous order, and the women were just coming at her. They didn't like it because, I don't want to go all over the place. So I'm just trying to make sure I stay on point. All right. So, so some women, they may call you a pick-me because your discipline exposes what they abandoned, right? So some of Sister Shahrazad Ali was sharing, like, we have to return back to, like, acting right. And that was exposing what women have decided to let go of and abandon and say, like, that's not important. I can act however I want to act, and it's totally fine. The men just got to take it. They just got to accept it. Accept me for who I am. And Sister Charles, I was like, no, like, the men, I'm telling you guys how to get your house back in order. These women are doing this and this. I'm making you aware so that you can start, like, bringing order. And I spoke about how it's the man's role. I spoke about a part of a man's role is they bring that word, the father. I spoke about the father. And I'll share that video in the description or at the end. But yeah, I spoke about the fathers and how they bring order. So that is the role of a man. And many, sisters, because they rejected that. Any sister that comes along and they're trying to remind and trying to bring that standard back, they get attacked. All right, so they need us to reject structure so they never have to examine the disorder in their own lives. They don't want to examine that. They don't want to really examine, like, I'm really not happy. I'm really not happy because I'm alone. I don't have a man. Who wants to grow old and not have a man that loves them, or have a family, like, who wants to grow old and not have children and not have a man there that could be there with you in your final days? just gonna go out alone. You came in with family, you came in with parents, you may have came in with siblings, and now you're telling me you're gonna go out alone. And you may say, well, I still have my parents, I still have my siblings, but what if some of your parents passed away? What if one or two of your parents passed away? Or what if your siblings, they have families? So it's still not the same. It's still not the same, because that's not the divine order. When you left your father's home, you left your father and mother's home, you were supposed to immediately enter into another family of your own. So, all right, so never let a woman with no peace in her life dictate how you should build peace in your future home. Block out the noise, block out what women are saying who do not have a home. They don't have a homestead. They may have a physical house, but they don't have a home. They don't have family. Like, just block it out. Just block it out. If you want to build peace, do not listen to the advice of women who do not bring peace or see the value of functioning inside of a righteous order. You know, like, ignore it, because they'll have you being alone. They'll have you not being able to keep a relationship. They'll have you in situations where men don't want to stay with you, where they cheat on you and stuff like that. So you don't want that. You don't want to be that woman that's been cheated on multiple times, or who have been done wrong multiple times. You don't want to get tainted so many times that your heart gets hardened as a woman. Yeah, we want to stay soft. We don't want our soil to get hard. We want our soil to stay moist. All right, because then it's fertile. That means your soil is fertilized and able to plant seeds in there and grow things. It's not so hard to till, and you get it prepared for seeds, which is knowledge, to be injected into it. All right, so accountable women love company. Do not join that club. Don't join that club. All right. Last point. A kingdom cannot be reduced to a woman's fantasy, which I touched on just a little bit earlier. When we are seeking to be picked, or we are looking for a high value man, we can sometimes delude ourselves into thinking that automatically gives us status. We ourselves upgraded, but that's not always necessarily the case, because if you haven't done the character work and you haven't cultivated yourself to be able to function inside of a righteous home, then you can put yourself in a situation where you are causing disorder, causing stress, and causing disharmony, which can cause you to possibly be ejected outside of the home. All right, so, and I did touch on the cheating. So like I said, many times men will want to leave you, or if you are with an unrighteous man, he'll just cheat on you without even telling you. And then men are even shamed for that, for cheating. Like, oh, it doesn't matter what's going on in a relationship, you should never cheat. But when you push somebody, it's like, what do you expect them to do? But I'm not condoning it, because there should be communication. And I don't think that people should tolerate someone just being a tyrant inside of the home. You know, that shouldn't be tolerated. But it's like, if you're pushing and pushing and pushing, and then you push a man to a point where it's like, okay, I need to seek some peace somewhere else, like better people to be around. You know, like, you can't really like shame a man too much for that, especially if you like kind of was driving them crazy. But yeah, and if you in a polygynous situation, let's say that's what you're aiming for, then if you are bringing chaos into the home, you might find that he's spending more time with the other sisters, and you're kind of being left over there. All right, so not fun. All right, so a serious man is building a mission, so we have to prepare ourselves as women to carry the responsibility of what comes along with that. All right, we have to endure sacrifices that may need to be made. We have to be able to accept correction, because if you're with a serious man, then you have to be serious and sober-minded yourself, and recognize, like, okay, if I'm being corrected, it's because it's affecting something that we're doing. So you can't get offended, or like, we're going to move that out the way. Whatever needs to be corrected, you're going to correct it, because you're looking at the higher mission. So yeah, so you want to remove those emotions out of it. And it doesn't mean that you cannot feel, but there's a time for that. Maybe you can schedule a family meeting or schedule a talk to talk about how you feel. But in the midst of working, you know, it's not best to always let your emotions like take over. Like you have to prioritize what's more important, how I feel in this moment or getting something done. Some things have deadlines and you don't have time to stop and, you know, like focus on how someone may feel. You may just need to get something done and then come back to it. So this is all a part of the responsibility that we carry as women, making sure that we are regulating our own emotions and have that emotional intelligence and being able to like manage ourselves. You know, we have to be able to do that. And I know sometimes like our emotions can be so triggering, so loud, and it's like, oh, I gotta react. But we have to realize that when we do behave like that, that is childlike behavior, and that is the part in us that did not grow up. We have to mature that. If you didn't parent yourself, for those who have heard of that concept, like you have to parent yourself in order to help, you know, mature certain aspects of you that didn't grow up, you know, that never grew up. So you have to parent yourself. This is why it's important to have fathers and men in the home, which I did share, because that's where you get the discipline from. So then if you don't have them when you grow up, it's hard for you to discipline your own self and parent your own self and be like, hey, stop behaving like this. And you acting like a child. It's hard for you to do that with your own self because you didn't receive that as a child. So now you have to kind of step outside of that. You have to observe yourself and be self-aware. Maybe do some meditation and look at yourself and be like, you know what? I should not be behaving this way. Anytime I'm cussing, yelling, acting wild, acting chaotic, you have to be able to say like, okay, I know that's childlike behavior. So anytime that I'm acting like that, I'm checking myself. And when I get into a situation where I may feel a strong emotion, you doing your breathing techniques, you like, you're doing what you have to do. You have these tools, and you can definitely like do your research about like how to manage stress, how to manage emotions, how to manage anger, how to manage strong emotions. Get you some tools. Some people like to take a walk. If it's really that bad, do you mind if I just take a 5-minute walk and come right back? Because you know, like use your communication is a tool. You know, so this is our responsibility as women when we are preparing to build with a serious man, and it's a heavy responsibility, and we can't allow women who disregarded and who pushed away that responsibility to shame us out of not doing that work. All right, so. And I did touch on the last one already, being able to contribute when the household is under pressure. Yeah. When there's stress going on, when the man is under stress, maybe he's under attack, we have to be able to be like, you know what? Okay, how do I step in? How do I step in as that protector of the home? When there's attacks on all fronts, there's attacks on him, and how do I come in? What she's resourceful? What resources am I pulling together? Be like, all right, y'all, you know, whether it's lots of children, women, and stuff, y'all. If it's more, you know, I'm for polygamy when it comes to nation building, obviously. So you banding together with us, it's like, all right, y'all, what we gotta do? Strengthen numbers. What we gotta do, y'all? They coming from over here and here, like, okay, what do we have the power to do as women? And you do it. All right, so closing questions. Do you want the man, or do you just want the lifestyle that comes along with it? You know, some women, they are able to admit and say like, okay, you are too high value for me, I'm gonna pull out. But then there's some women that's like, nah, I want what I want. But when they get into it, they realize that none of the things that they had, like the romanticism that they may have had in their head, the fantasy of what they've seen in media through propaganda, is not coming true. They don't see it coming true, and they're like, oh man, this is no fun. This is too serious. This is not what I thought it was going to be. Are you really seeking the responsibility that comes along with building with a man, or just the fantasy of it? Because you're going to be sadly mistaken, and very disappointed When you have deluded yourself into thinking that, okay, I'm already high value when I didn't do the cultivation work, now I'm trying to get together with a high value man, and you think it's going to work. It's not going to work. It will fail. You know, many times if you have low value, they get along great. Medium value, they get along great. High value people get along great. But as soon as it's lopsided, and you're going to have issues. So you just have to bring yourself up, and it's work. It's work, and the purpose of this video is just to share with you. Don't let anybody, don't let the noises of other women who have decided not to go on this journey of building a nation and helping to build a kingdom. Don't listen to them, you know, because this is just helping you not to waste time. You know, this is just helping you not to waste time. All right. A king does not need another dependent, dressed or purporting herself as a righteous woman. She may come with her head wrapped and be like, yeah, I'm a righteous woman. I follow Yah. I follow the Creator. But when she gets into that relationship, she's pulling and pulling and pulling from that man. Help me, help me, help me, help me. Which I think I spoke about that in my very first video. Help me, help me, help me. It's like, come on, like, bring your value, sis. Bring your value. I'm all for women bringing a value. I'm all for women being very, very capable, strutting their stuff. You know, like I'm advocate for it. So when a woman comes in and she's like, oh, a damsel in distress, she's coming as a damsel. man, you gonna just get yourself in some trouble there. We get ourselves in a lot of trouble when we come like that. Speaking from experience. All right. High value man, he needs a capable woman that can help him preserve the kingdom. All right. Be an asset, not a liability. Right? Be an asset, not a liability. That didn't really come out too right. But, you know, all right. Bring that value, sisters. And don't let anyone shame you. All right. If you found value out of this video, share the information, share the content. I love to hear your voices, what you have to say. I'll be back with another live, another Sabbath conversation next Sabbath at 1 p.m. I think I said 12 p.m. last time. 1 p.m. This is Eliana. Thank you for joining. Shabbat Shalom, and enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.